Welcome to Channel Security Secrets. I'm Lou Raban. On this show, we expose the untold secrets and critical insights from the people shaping the future of cybersecurity sales in the Trusted Advisor channel. If you're looking to up your game around selling security, stick around. Channel Security Secrets is brought to you by Cyber Defense Group, on a mission to shift cybersecurity from reactive to resilient. I'm thrilled to chat with our guest today. He's an IT leader and elite technical resource trusted by top enterprises for over a decade. He's held leading tech positions at companies like MTM Solutions and Alliant Technologies. He brings hands-on experience delivering IT and business solutions for organizations ranging from SMBs to large enterprises. He works closely with partners, vendors, and clients at every level of the organization. He's now the Director of Client Technology Solutions at Convergent. Matt Kopp, welcome to the show.
Lou, thank you for having me. Looking forward to being here.
Yeah, let's just get right into it. What is the biggest secret to your success, Matt, in the channel?
I would say focusing on the client, the business outcomes, and becoming an extension of their team. We really want to be the group that our customers think of when the business brings them an initiative, or they have an idea or run into a problem. We want to be the team that they call and bring in as that trusted advisor. So we recognize that every organization is at a different point with their technology. They're at different stages in building out a cybersecurity program, if they're really focused on that at all. And they have different goals as a business. So the better we understand all three of those things is really how we add value for our clients. We've here at Convergent, I've been here about 8 years now, I think. We've been in business. Coming up in February will be 50 years. So we've really transitioned from being originally a carrier, a PBX vendor, to a traditional VAR, selling unified communications, network and data center infrastructure, now really focused on being a full service technology advisory firm. So to do that and what's kind of made us successful in the channel here, just to go back to your question, there is we spent a lot of time focused on understanding our current customers' business and technology needs and digging into the data that we have about our customers from how we've worked with them in the past. We've built strategic relationship with our customers and focus more on those outcomes that I mentioned earlier and less on transactional business to really build long-term strategic relationships with those customers, because we really believe it's important to meet customers where they are currently. And that's from a technology perspective, or even in a cybersecurity perspective, understand where they are in the kind of journey, what they're trying to get to. So we can help them build that roadmap.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, and that's great that's what you're concentrating on and Convergent is concentrating on, which is not being transactional, understanding deeply what the customer needs are and aligned with their business and their business outcomes, which is something that, we do also at Cyber Defense Group, which is why we like partnering with Convergent, because you guys understand that as well. And that's the way you look at the world. And, being a part of their team as well. I think that is something we're doing the same thing. So that's why we work well with you. But I think it's really important for a lot of the trusted advisors out there that are listening to this. It's not just about, hey, let's sling a couple, circuits and then move on, especially when you speak about cyber. So you mentioned cybersecurity a bunch as well. What are some of the things that you're seeing with cyber right now? And is cyber something that you've been selling for a while?
Cyber has been something that, as an organization, we've been selling for a little while. I have been personally as well. I think I started selling MDR services with eSentire in 2013, 2014. So it's I have a relatively long history of that. And we've been doing it as an organization since I've been here, as well as we grew our relationship with you guys and through the Avant portfolio for the last 4 to 5 years, really have focused on cyber, because it is a differentiator for us, and it allows us to put our customers in a much better place than they are currently. A lot of people think that they're secure because they have firewalls, some endpoint detection. But when we really start digging into it, we find the gaps in the environment, and that's when we we bring in professionals like yourselves that who are the subject matter experts to really dig into that and find solutions for them.
That's great. So, like, the people and process part, it's not just about the, yeah, the technology solution.
Well, yeah, we've tried to transition away from the technology solution focus as we migrated away from being VAR focused, let's say, and really, yeah, that's still there. It's always going to be there. The technology ultimately is involved in all of this, but we do need to make sure that have the people have processes in place. They go through the exercises that need to be done, and they have the resources to lean on from a security perspective.
Yeah, big time. So, what's that evolution been? You said that's impressive because 2013, 2014, those are early days of cyber. I mean, I've been doing it a little bit longer than that, but it's, back in the day, but in the aughts, it was kind of like you could go back to paper even. There were that was kind of some of the customer conversations. They're like, "Listen, we're not Fort Knox." I can't tell you how many times I heard that in my career. "We don't need to do that," because they really could fall back to paper. 2013, 2014, that's when things started to change just a bit, not a huge amount, but people were starting to see more advanced attacks. Breaches started to become really, more. There was a lot more news around them, and so there you started with MDR. What was your kind of evolution from doing, just selling MDR to understanding? Wait, there's a lot more to this puzzle.
I think it's partly been our relationship with Avant that's really grown that. I mean, we were selling point products around the MDR, but not what I would consider now a security program, and really helping the customers have understand from beginning to end where they're at and more, selling point products that were going to solve a specific need. Just as an example, that what we had one customer a couple of years ago that we reached out to us through Cisco and said, "Hey, we want to buy Cisco Umbrella," and that's great. Like, good product, everything. Well, when we got on the phone and asked why and started having those conversations, they said, "Well, we are starting to plan for a CMMC certification. We want to be able to, service the government. That's going to be a large part of our business." And when we started going down vCISO route and MSSP services and patching programs. So just the one question for us of why has changed, a lot of opportunities from a point product like we had mentioned, to a full service platform for the customer.
Yeah, and asking why, that's again a recurring theme. We often get inbound, okay, well, they want a pen test, and it's like, wait, why? What are they trying to accomplish? And then, yeah, you need to basically dig and understand more about their business, more about their goals, and then start to align whatever you're going to recommend with those goals and outcomes.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then going back to the paper conversation earlier, I sat in on an incident response with a customer, a tabletop exercise with about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And one of the things and then one of the executives outside of IT had said was, could we go back to paper? I know we've had that in place. And the IT people were basically like, well, yeah, we have, but nobody here's ever done it. The generation of employees here have only worked in this system. They have never done it. So it's not as simple as it used to be, where you just switched over to a platform, whether that's an EMR or something like that, and then be able to just fail back right away. It's a whole different world now where nobody knows that environment anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's so true. Between things moving away from on-prem, so you don't have control of that. I mean, some of the advantages are you can sometimes get up and running quicker because you're not keeping anything locally. So if anything locally is connected, you don't have to worry about it because you go to the cloud. But on the flip side, yeah, how do you spin up an entire new cloud instance under a new domain name, perhaps, and then all the infrastructure associated with that and stuff? You can do it. It's actually, we've done it. It's doable, but you don't want the first time you're doing that to be when you're in the middle of an incident. You definitely want that to be something you've practiced, rehearsed, documented, things like that. So that's great that your customers are actually doing tabletops. Are you seeing a lot more demand for that?
It's something that we've seen. more, it's been coming up more, and we've been recommending it more. And I think it's part of our, as we've grown and educated ourselves in the security space, and we don't, and I certainly don't consider myself a security practitioner, but we want to make sure that we're keeping up to date. Okay, what's the best practices on do this? Let's look at what do you have an incident response plan? Have you done a tabletop exercise before you go and do a penetration test? Because you did one last year and you probably haven't gone back and fixed everything that was found in that report. So let's really get an understanding of the environment and the needs, and fill those gaps before you come back, before you do that penetration test.
Oh yeah, big time. And that's I feel like the pen tests are kind of a false sense of security because they're like, okay, well, no one could the people that we hired couldn't break in, and there's so many variables behind that. It's like, how much did you pay for that pen test? Because if it was under 50K, I can guarantee you they ran a vulnerability scanner and probably, did some manual testing, but they didn't do what a persistent or motivated attacker will do, which is patiently probe every single thing and really, really run vulnerabilities, et cetera, against it. What was the detective capability? Things like that. So, yeah, I think IR plans or IR tabletops, incident response tabletops, are the modern equivalent of I have a firewall kind of thing.
Yeah, we unfortunately we don't hear that as much anymore. Of hey, I have a firewall and antivirus on our on our endpoint,
Yeah,
so
we're
I'm
good.
okay. But yeah, every once in a while you still hear things that surprise you.
Yeah, yeah. And, what about the, like, other vectors? Are you seeing, any change in the MSP environment with, like, IT providers? Because that's been a pain point for us where we try to, educate customers when we come in and they're like, "Well, IT firm X can do it for, a lot cheaper." And it's like, "Yeah, but, it's not the same thing." Do you how do you feel about that? And is that something you're seeing?
It is something that we see, especially on the lower end of the market, where you have smaller, maybe local or regional MSPs that say we do cybersecurity too, and it's a checkbox in the menu. But it's not the same as having somebody that your entire organization is focused on cybersecurity, like CDG is. That's where there's really a differentiation there, and you're going to get a lot more value for the money that you're spending versus those local MSPs. They're just they're using a third party to monitor, and they're not doing any of that stuff themselves. No organization those sizes can really staff what's needed to 24 hours, let alone get the right people to begin with and the experience to begin with. We do see as we move up the stack in the larger MSPs, the MSSPs that are national or even international, that they have the staff and the ability to do it. But I also think it is important to have a partner to work with that can be separate from your MSP. It is something to consider because if someone's in charge of the infrastructure and the security, there is a little bit of a conflict there. So we generally try and look at it as, if you're going to go for an MSP, let's find the best one for you, and then also develop a security plan around that using a partner like CDG.
Yeah, that's great, and it's a smart strategy because there's two things on that. One is, IT's job is to keep the lights on, and often that's where problems come in because IT will say, "Okay, the CEO just called me, got to open this port," or give him an exception or her an exception for the whatever security controls that are in place. Let's do it because we got to, or whatever. There's a developer. It's midnight. They're in, overseas somewhere, and we just need to let them get in to do their work. But the problem is that's not obviously very secure. And but cyber can't do their job if IT without IT. So there's got to be a partnership there, but there's also got to there needs to be oversight on the cyber side of the IT department. And it's not to say that IT should report to cyber. It's just to say that when IT is doing things, they need to have, kind of it needs to be informed. If you're looking at the RACI, it's the I. Cyber needs to be informed and sometimes or consulted often as well. So yeah, I think that IT there's always going to be a little friction. I've seen in a ton of environments, But ultimately, that's something that we're doing now is we're looking at an IT capabilities assessment to determine, are they really basic stuff? Are they following like ITIL? Are they doing tickets? Are they ticketing all the changes that they have? Are they doing like firewall rule reviews and stuff like that? That really is an IT issue, firewall rules. However, cyber has to have some oversight of that. So yeah, it's good that you've got that. You're recommending that that's separate because I can't agree, enough.
Yeah, I mean, there should be, I mean, obviously the two working together, but there should be a level of tension and pushback there because, they have different roles and requirements and they're being asked to do different things. So I think I think that's natural that is going to happen. And where we see a lot of the mid market or even smaller or larger small business, say 200 to 1,000 employees, they really a lot of them don't have the technical security staff to be able to do this themselves. And most of them, unless you get to that high end, they can't justify it from a cost perspective, which is where we fit in to be able to help fill those gaps with our partners.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sweet spot for us, obviously, because our value prop is for one FT, the cost of one FTE, you're getting a team, and that's the mistake I think a lot of those mid market companies make is, okay, we're going to spend one FTE or two FTEs worth of security. They hire the full time employees, and then they realize that's not actually they need more than that, and it's not because it's so complex necessarily their environment. It's just that there's so much to cover in when you open that Pandora's box of security, there's so much that to cover that you realize, wait a second, this is bigger than we imagined. And we see a lot of mid-market companies fall down because they hire that one person and they expect them to do everything, or they give the title to someone in IT. Like, "You're the director of IT, we're gonna make you the director of security and IT." And it's like they're usually already overbooked with their IT responsibilities, and now they're like, "Okay, let's throw some security on top of that." It's not like a frosting, right? Like, it's like its own, like, kitchen.
It's multiple full-time jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I met with a client last week for lunch and they're like, we're being told we should, I forget who it was that said it, but they should put a sim in place. And I'm like, well, if you want one, that's great. You can get one, but there's two of you for 250 employees. You're going to look at it for the first 48 hours and then you're never going to look at it again. So unless you're putting in a program and somebody to actually monitor and respond to these things, there's not much of a point there for you to spend the money on that. You're not going to get any value out of it until there's a problem, and at least you can go back and get some data to figure out what happened. But we want to avoid that to begin with.
Big time. And yeah, I mean, trying to self-serve on some of the stuff that you can outsource, like, yeah, I'm sorry, MDR, absolutely. There's some great vendors out there that have the SIM and the endpoint. That's commoditized now. Like, you absolutely need to do that. There's no reason to try to do that yourself internally. Not only are you not going to save money, but yeah, especially if you rely on the vendor out of the box configuration, that's a recipe for disaster. So, yeah, outsource that to an MDR, a good XDR vendor.
Yeah, I think it just gives you a false sense of security when you're doing that, really.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. If you think about it, it's a lot of the industry's fault, which has this kind of tick box mentality, like, "Okay, check, check, check." Do you have especially cyber insurance, which is now getting more complicated, well, not complicated, but yes, more in depth as to what the controls are. Because yeah, it's not just like, yeah, do you have a firewall, do you have antivirus or endpoint protection, do you have an MDR vendor? Okay, tick tick tick. Do you have a SIM? Now it's like, well, what are your policies and procedures around security? What does your program look like? How are you continuously reviewing the threats against your environment and understanding how they're evolving? Those things, you can't tick those boxes. That's not like a have that. And the problem is, though, the vendors would have you believe that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can say put our product in, and then you can say you've covered it with X, and that's just not that it's just not the case anymore. And it's changing the business side's understanding of what's required for cybersecurity. Before, if you were just getting that checkbox of, hey, do we have these 15 things or whatever it was, and they could say yes, that's all they cared about. But once you have to start having those deeper conversations, and it turns into almost an essay response versus a checkbox, it opens up a lot of people's eyes. And for us, that's great because it gives us the opportunity to go in and have those conversations with not just the IT team or the security people, but with the business side of the organization.
Yeah, and third-party assessments too. If they start doing business with Fortune 500 customers, there's no way they're going to pass those checks just by tick box or even saying, "Hey, got SOC 2, got some kind of PCI or whatever." They're going to be asked, "Hey, so show us. Let's talk to who's your security lead. Let's have a phone call." And especially if that's like an IT person that or an MSP that's never really been in those rooms to have those conversations with these, yeah, not gonna go well, and we've seen it. Um, yeah, it's really interesting with the third party stuff too. That's how a lot of the companies are getting hacked now is through third party vendors. So the Fortune 500 is absolutely saying, wait a second, we're not just taking this. As a tangent, the whole I don't know if you know Vanta, which is a platform to get SOC 2 and stuff.
Yeah, I know the name. Yeah,
I love what their original idea was, but I'm kind of on a soapbox against the Vantas of the world and the trust centers because you look at this big hack, the Salesloft hack, Salesloft drift. What happened there was, all these big companies like Palo Alto Networks. I mean, they're the biggest security company out there right now. They did, I don't know what they did for third party, risk. I'm sure whatever they did, you look at the trust center at Salesloft and it shows, hey, they've got SOC 2, ISO, like every compliance there you can imagine. That didn't prevent them from getting hacked. And it's because these companies now are saying, oh, you want SOC 2 in a box? Sign up for our program. We'll scan your AWS environment. We'll tell you a couple things that have vulnerabilities. Once you close them, you get a green check, and then we've got these auditors that are popping up like mushrooms, and they're like, hey, we can give you an audit and a SOC 2. That's not doing anything to move the industry forward. That's actually moving us backward.
yeah. I mean, it's almost like what we were talking about earlier with the penetration testing. That you're kind of falling back into that same false sense of security. That, oh, okay, they have that checkbox, so we can use them. And I mean, at some point there has to be some level. I'm gonna use the word trust, but because you have to have business partners, you have to have these relationships and use the tools and applications that are out there. But it can make people think that just because they have this one thing on their website that everything's secure. Now, people might just use that to cover themselves as well. That, hey, we checked all these things that we could, and it's the best that we could do because there's only so far you can go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're not going to spend $1 million to protect a $100,000 piece of whatever piece of data or something. So it doesn't mean that you have to go overboard. And it's true, a lot of these companies are startups. They've got good kind of a good product, but they don't necessarily have the funding to do a full crazy, Department of Defense level security, but you don't need that. I think that's the misconception that a lot of business owners and C-suite executives have is listen, we shouldn't have to have we can get by with spending 0.0001% of our budget on security, or they tie the security budget to the IT budget. So the IT budget may be, I don't know, 1%, 10% of their revenue, but then they give, it's less than 1% of the IT budget that they allocate towards security. Those are bad metrics. Are you seeing anything good out there?
I mean, we see a lot of customers still looking at it that way. That security is still part of the IT, especially in that mid market. That there's not a separate budget for that. We do have some customers that have started budgeting for those things and signed up for services. Like we have some customers with you guys that really for one reason and the other, God had a reason that they wanted to go down that route. It opened their eyes to where they could have been previously for a lot less money. Unfortunately, sometimes something bad happens if that's what it takes. And it's what we all try and avoid, and what we're preaching out there to customers. But not everybody hears it until it's right in front of their face.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just a misconception too. I mean, there's some, industries that are really well kind of protected because they're regulated. There's a very obvious loss. Finance and healthcare are the two that are really obvious. Then there's other industries like manufacturing, et cetera, that are just starting to get into understanding the impact of not having a cyber program. And with all of the evolving threats and now AI accelerating everything, it's both good and bad. It's really leading to an environment where no matter who you are, if you rely on the internet and being connected to any kind of digital infrastructure to conduct your business, or even software programs that are connected to, like SaaS, et cetera, you're affected. You need to have a plan. So, yeah, every company is a tech company these days, essentially.
Essentially, or at least they need to keep that at the top of their list to maintain. Yeah, you are a manufacturer, but you really need to understand the technology that's in place, or bring somebody in that does and that can take care of that for you.
Yeah, and that's what's good about you as a trusted advisor and having the trusted advisor community because, we've spoken about how vendors can absolutely just muck up the whole conversation because of sales and marketing, which, we all gotta make a living, right? But sometimes that marketing is like the silver bullet thing doesn't, especially in security. You can help, you know, like unwind all of that and then help them find the good vendors. So I think that's really important, and that's why you're serving a purpose there.
Well, I think that goes back to identifying, the goals and outcomes in the beginning. Because if you don't know what you're really trying to accomplish, whether it's security, whether it's UCAS, CCAS, whatever it happens to be, if you don't know what you're trying to get to as an endpoint, you're gonna see, okay, this vendor says they can do this. That sounds great, and it's gonna solve our problems. But if that wasn't on your list to begin with, and it's not solving everything else, then it's probably not the right solution for you. And I think that's where we try and help identify that in the beginning of the process in the first, we have I think it's about a 12-step process that we go through as we're evaluating solutions for customers, whether that's security or unified communications, whatever happens to be cloud services. And we go through that and evaluate those requirements, I think in step two or maybe three. So we really want to get that up front before we get any conversations with any providers, any vendors, because if you can't identify that, if I can't come to you and say, here's exactly what they're looking to accomplish, it's probably not going to go anywhere because you're not going to know what to bring to them if when we have those conversations, and they're not going to know what to ask for from you. So we really need to be as that trusted advisor, help them define those goals where maybe it's a business perspective, their business outcome that they're trying to accomplish, but we need to help map that over on the technical side to be able to have those conversations as well.
Big time. So Matt, what would you say to a trusted advisor? You've been selling security for, 12 plus years. What about the trusted advisors that haven't sold security before that want to start selling in this channel? What kind of advice would you have for them?
I mean, I think it's similar to, because I've listened to your other episodes, so I've fan of the show,
Thank you.
but it's similar to what some of the other guys have said. Like I know Stefan had mentioned, start with DDoS if you're selling circuits. I mean, I obviously agree with that, but also if you've been selling, circuits, you've been selling MPLS traditionally, and then you go into SD-WAN. Look at SASE solutions. It's basically the next generation of SD-WAN with security layered on top of it. And you're going to cover a whole bunch of different areas. Like a lot of, when we're working through these security conversations with customers to originally kind of lay things out and map it out, we use the cyber defense matrix to do that. And because visually it works great for both the IT team that we're talking to, as well as we show that to the business side, because you can easily see gaps in the environment. So The way I look at it is if you're selling, MPLS, SD-WAN, carrier circuits, look at SASE solutions. It's an easy transition because you're going to fill a lot of those gaps in with a lot of what comes with SASE solutions. Still have to find the right providers and the right partners and really lay it out as a part of the overall framework, but it's not a huge jump to make. Or if you're selling a lot of UCAS, talk about how they're securing the endpoints. Those the software is going on every PC, it's going on their mobile devices. How are you securing the mobile devices? How do you have two-factor setup or multi-factor? I mean, there's so many different ways that it can go, that it just really it's asking one or two more questions when you're having that conversation about whatever it is that you've traditionally sold to your customers. And I would start there. Start with your existing customer base that you already have relationships with, you had already trust you, and just say, hey, we had this conversation about, or we deployed the UCAS for you. Let's take a look at how you're securing those endpoints, because there is data that gets downloaded to those endpoints and then in the UCAS client apps. So we want to make sure that you're covering those, and I think that's an easy transition for trusted advisors.
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, Stefan's the man. He has really good ways of overcoming some of that for the TAs that are just getting into it. And I think that's what the TSDs are doing now too, is they're obviously providing the platform, like with training Stefan and Rick at Avant, and there's a number of others. We spoke to Melanie at Bridgepoint recently. She's great. So they are kind of dedicating people, the TSDs, to handle security, even though now Stefan's moved on, obviously, to, I think, AI and cloud is what he's working on. But you got Rick, who's really well capable of covering there over at Avant. He's the
Yeah.
man too. Yeah, love Rick. And so in that, they can provide the TAs with some kind of information that, hey, if you start to get into it, they've always said, just pull in the vendor. Like, we'll jump on a call anytime. And most vendors, there's a ton of MDR vendors, like you said. You mentioned the eSentire. There's Agile Blue. There's all the players in there. They be happy to jump on a call, and even if hopefully, what they'll do is put it out there that even if it's not something they do, they will say, hey, this is what you should look at if you're looking to build a security program or something like that. So
Yeah, I agree. The resources are there, and you don't have to be the expert for it. You just need to ask a couple more questions around what you already know to then bring in the experts for it, and you're going to learn as you go.
that's right. And we're doing enablement for those TAs. I think that's important, is to, explain to them before they have conversations with customers. What do what do you listen for when you bring us in, all that fun stuff. But you believe I mean, obviously security is not going anywhere. It's a good way. Um, the other thing that we have a challenge with sometimes is there's circuits, data centers. It's a much easier sale. It's harder to sell the sometimes a more complex solution for security. The sales cycles are longer, but it's stickier. You gain, trust, but we're going to keep using that word, the trust that you gain with your customer. And then the other, kind of opportunities that pop out of it that could be unrelated to security, but because you've done a good job by introducing a great vendor like us, shameless plug, then it would be, a relationship that makes, actually bears more fruit because you've done that introduction. How do you navigate that as well? Like, you've got two deals. One is you're going to get a great commission. The numbers are much bigger. It's a 3 to 5 year deal, and it'll close in 30 days versus, smaller numbers. Maybe it's going to take 6 months to close, et cetera. Like, what do you say to TAs that are weighing that decision?
I mean, ultimately, the way we look at it, I was just having a similar conversation with John Frank, our director of sales, and we're going through this, and it really is. If we're doing the right thing for our customers, of whether that's security, cloud, we're going to end up successful. They're going to call us back. If we build that relationship, we'll end up getting all the business that we need. It's not a matter of who's going to pay commission higher or lower, or whatever. Ultimately, it's all close enough. It doesn't really matter. So we look at it as, if we have that security project and a cloud project, what's the priority for the business? If assuming it's the same organization, what's the priority for the business? If you're going to go cloud and it's going to take 6 months to make that migration, at the same time, we're going to have the security kind of build out that roadmap and that program, and which is going to include those cloud services. You're going to need that time anyway to transition everything, and then still go through the full process of the sales process from the security side. So I think it's really going back to kind of understanding the customer and what their outcomes are, their requirements are, that they're looking to get to, and focusing on that. And you're gonna be successful in the long term.
Yeah, great advice. So what's exciting you about the future? I'm sure it might have something to do with AI, but when you've been doing this for a while, when you're looking at the landscape, what are you seeing out there that really kind of gets you excited?
Yeah, I think the AI is everywhere. It's in everything anymore. So you can't go you can't go a day without talking about it. I mean, I think there was about 2, 3 weeks. It was right before we saw each other last in Texas. We had I think like 6 meetings in a week for AI and looking at LLMs for customers, and all different customers. And we made one phone call, and they all took the meeting. So it's a great fit. Right now, everybody wants to learn about it. Everybody has an initiative or thinks they're going to have an initiative around it. But the, you can't leave security out of that either. So that's why I love the security conversation with customers, because no matter what they're doing, it's got to be wrapped in security. If we're looking at the data governance, or even some of the partners that we have, like Akamai with their AI firewall, and there's just some new things coming out that have been very interesting, and that we can go to our customers and bring to, as we're having those conversations around, hey, we want our own LLM, but we know our people are going to chat GPT and throwing things in there that they shouldn't be. We got to stop this. So we want to make sure that um, we're having those conversations, because that's what the business is going to be demanding, is that those AI conversations, but explaining to them that, yeah, you still need to focus on security. How do you really segment this data? How do you classify it all, and understand that, for so you're not releasing the crown jewels of the company out into the into the internet, or for anybody in the company to search.
Yeah, AI governance is data governance, and that's where it's really funny when you start layering on these next gen pieces of technology. It still comes back to the basics. So
Yeah,
really interesting.
I mean, it always does, and it's always similar. It tends to be similar transitions over time. Of AI is new and people don't understand it, but that's how a lot where security was before, and still is, because there's so much to it. But every technology phase goes through that, and as people understand it more, that'll change over time.
Big time. Big time. So, what's a personal story, if you have one, that demonstrates where cybersecurity might have had kind of a direct impact on you or people you know?
So I think probably everybody that on here has, or that listens to this, is gonna know somebody that's been, their credit card's been stolen and their bank account's been stolen. I mean, you and I have been working in, call it IT, for long enough that, and whenever something happens, someone's going to call you and say, how do I
Yep.
fix this?
Yep.
What did
Yeah.
I clicked on this, that type of thing. So I think we've all been there. If you're in this industry, I think personally, what drives me on a lot of these things is there's customers that I've worked with for 10, 15, almost 20 years on some of them. Some that I've known 30 years almost at this point. And I'm not even that old at this.
Right.
But it feels like I am now. But there's a lot that, if you want to make sure that if they're coming to you from a personal perspective, I want to make sure that we're giving them the best solutions, to make sure that we're putting them in a place to succeed, and as well as their organizations, because I don't want somebody coming to me, or going a different direction because of price or whatever it is, and then end up losing their job because they got hit by a breach, and it was and there could have been a way to solve that ahead of time. So I kind of take that personally when we're having those conversations, because we want to be that trusted advisor, and we have to make sure that if something does ever happen, that we're there standing with you. and working through the process with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you've seen it. If you take it personally, you've seen a number of that. Yeah, totally. And people, yeah, there's the elder scams. There's, the AI deep fakes now, which I think it's going to get worse. I mean, I know it's going to get worse. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And it's going to get worse a lot faster than what we're used to previously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to there's a generational gap thing here too, because a lot of people that are getting taken advantage of are ones that might not have been digital natives. So it's interesting because I don't know. Do you have kids?
I have 3 kids.
Oh,
So
okay.
and they're definitely digital native at this point. Yeah, and they're young. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got kids too, and I kind of feel like they're not. I'd like to think at least, maybe even if it's because I'm their dad and I've kind of been like cyber focused for their lives, that they're not going to easily get scammed. And I've seen it already. Like, luckily they haven't. There hasn't been anything like really shocking. Well, I remember when we were just moving into like the digital age, my niece, who's now in her 30s, and I'm not going to name her, to hold her identity, but she posted her driver's license on Facebook when she first got it. And, that was a time when people were oversharing everything. And, I remember, she took it down within, milliseconds. Cause when I saw it, I mean, I haven't been on Facebook in probably 12 years, but, like back then and I was like, take that down now. So I think that's I'm not just talking about older people. I mean, even people that are in their 30s and 20s, maybe that were in that generation where it was new, but it wasn't as dangerous as it is today. Now, I think we're kind of transitioning.
Yeah, I think well, and I think with a lot of people, especially with social media, younger people still are, and I don't know if I don't think it'll ever change. They're still going to be sharing too much because they don't recognize the risk and the danger that's out there from any number of perspectives. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's always going to be a concern.
Yeah. I think that's parenting. That goes back to sometimes parenting too. And that you can't solve for necessarily, unfortunately. But
No, I just tell my kids when I can shut down your iPads whenever I want to from my phone. So just
exactly. Yeah.
just be aware.
Even though screen time doesn't work from Apple, like, that, right? And they intentionally do that because they would lose revenue, so kids can get past screen time, but that's
Yeah. Oh
a
yeah.
conversation for another time. So who's Matt? What got you here from you told us about, like, in the, mid, teens, 2010, 2014, you were working on you kinda made a transition, but how'd you get here?
Yeah, I graduated from Penn State with a degree in information technology, and out of that co-founded essentially an MSP, just weren't calling that at the time, and for had that for about 5 years. We sold that, and then I basically I never considered myself in sales at that point. I always just called it consulting. And then I realized essentially all I was in sales. It just I just wasn't looking at it that way. So I've done sales roles after that. I've done implementation roles. I've done I do mostly all pre-sales engineering now essentially. But I do have a base of customers that I've worked with for a long time that I support directly. So that's kind of it's been a long transition of I've done pretty much it. If you're looking from the MSP VAR now into the advisory space here, I've done like almost everything in the business of from purchasing that down all the way to the pre-sales and implementation engineering. So it's been an interesting ride so far.
That's awesome, and that gives you, yeah, a great perspective. You understand the whole nugget. Not to say that you're, an expert at every single part of it, but you under to have the exposure and then be able to understand it gives you a much deeper, way to have conversations too when you're going into these customers.
Yeah, because you're understanding it from the sales perspective, how you're working with the manufacturer partners or our providers now, how it's going to be designed, how it ultimately will be implemented, and being involved in that entire path along the way. It is helpful to really get that visibility.
Yeah, big time. And then what do you do for fun?
Well, it depends on the weekend. We we try. Three young kids. I have a wonderful wife, Libby, who lets me get away with a lot. But I have three kids, the 7, 5, and almost 5 and 3. So they keep us very busy. So we're always on the road. We're always doing something. But we spend a lot of time together with family, and going to the beach, those types of things. But it's the family keeps us busy these days.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's going to continue for a while. So especially as they get into whatever they get into, whether it's sports or some kind of events, etc., you'll be driving around. Not enough of you to split up.
I'm already feeling it. Luckily, we have a lot of help.
Yeah, good, good. And where can people find you?
You can reach out through Convergent, which I'm sure you'll have the link at askconvergent.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on X as well. I'll share that with you guys. And I don't post a lot on X and do a lot of following, more around IT, cybersecurity, those types of things. Just keeping up to date, what's popping up out there. But happy to talk with anybody.
Awesome. Yeah, LinkedIn is pretty much the social, media that we're all using in this business environment.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
definitely looking more and more like Instagram and Facebook these days too. So, um, listen, Matt Kopp, thank you so much for coming on and sharing these great insights. Really appreciate you being here.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks to those that are watching or listening. If you learned something today, you laughed, had a good time, please tell someone about this podcast. Thanks again, Matt. And this has been another exciting episode of Channel Security Secrets. See you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Channel Security Secrets. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes, guest info, and more episodes, visit us at channelsecuritysecrets.com. Channel Security Secrets is sponsored by Cyber Defense Group. When it comes to protecting your business, don't settle for reactive. Partner with experts who build resilience from the ground up.